everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show you how to make your very own leather leaf earrings. These are an excellent way of building up kind of a base inventory for your booth or for your website if you want something that can be sold as pretty affordable. Also, they're a great way of using up scrap or second use leather, so let's get started. For this project I'm using around a 2-ounce leather. These were actually the cutouts from a mask project that I was doing, but you could cut your leaves out to be whatever shape that you like. The tools, I'm set up on a poundo board with a granite slab with a cutting mat or punch board. And I'm going to be using a 1/8 inch hole punch right off the bat to go ahead and get the holes punched. I'm using a rawhide hammer. You could also just as well use a poly mallet or plastic head. I don't necessarily recommend the wooden headed hammers because they just don't really seem to get the job done very well, but they will do in a pinch. But you certainly don't need like a metal hammer. I feel like that it reverberates through your fingers a lot and you can really feel it. Now here we have an assortment of tools that we can use. This is a beveler foot. You can see the texture on there and its shape. These are pear shaders, and it's actually time for me to get a new one. I've taught too many classes with this one and had people hammer with it on the metal. So I'm losing some of my pattern and texture there, so I think for this one I'm going to be using my medium-sized pear shader. And then here we have some different options of, it's a tool called a camouflager. And you can see the different tip styles. And they actually give us these 3 different effects. Well, camouflagers and veiners, it depends on really who you're talking to or whose website you're shopping for tools on. So, and then also most importantly is probably a swivel knife, because technically you could just, this is basically it. You would take this, put a jump ring through that loop and attach it to an earring hook, and you have some leather leaf earrings. But let's see if we can't make it a little bit more artsy fartsy. So we're going to come through with just some water in a spritz bottle. And I want to give a good soak. So you can see here how it's darkening the color. It's starting to really soak in. For thin projects like this, I don't really bother taking it into the kitchen to dunk it in the sink for casing. I just case it in here. Now I do want the back nice and moistened as well. And we can blot up the extra moisture. Because whenever we're tooling, we don't want it to be soggy, but we also don't want it to be too dry. And the more you do this, the more you'll find a nice balance for yourself. It's not quite wet enough there in the center for me. So I try to get it to all be a nice uniform dark, like dark wet leather tone, and then I let it, well, I let all my tools slide off. I let it start to return back to its natural color. Now you could use a reference image or just whatever you like, but I'm going to be kind of winging this. These are going to be more fantasy style leaves than anything. So now that it doesn't feel soggy to the touch, I'm going to go ahead and start doing some cuts on it, and I want to do a center vein. Right down the middle like that. And I'm not necessarily bringing it all the way to the end. I just want a nice deep vein. Now also we can come in and do just a few more cuts, like so. You always have the option of, instead of doing those cuts, you could just use your camouflager or veiner There we go. And now I'm actually going to go around the edge with this pear shader. And I'm coming down in between these veins, and it's not wanting to stay still, so I'm putting my pinky on it to hold it in place. And I'm just kind of tooling. You can see in between those little leaves, or the little veins rather. And I'm actually going to get my hands on the big one here. I've actually had quite a bit of success in the past drawing the leaf out on a piece of scrap, tooling it, and then cutting it out. That way you have a little bit more fabric to work on. And I'm just going to place this tool right around the edge. And I feel like it's alright if it slips a bit, because then it just gives you a more ragged, natural looking edge. There we go. So now we're nice and tooled up around the edge of this one. Gonna do just a little bit more. Get a little bit of depth there, and whenever if we put an antique gel on this, that'll really show off that texturing and detail as well. So I'm going to do that same thing to the other leaf. I like to start at the tip and then kind of just work my way around. Sorry for the loud pounding, that's just part of it. So there we go. And again, we could just stop here. We could stop here, let it dry, put some dye on it. You can stain it with anything from, leather stains, fabric stain, some natural, dyes and stuff would work pretty well too. Or we can add more detail. So I'm going to come through with this camouflager, and I want to zoom in just a little bit just to see if we can get some more detail in here. And I just want to come in on these high points. In between the pear shading spots. And see how you can give it just a little bit of texture and pattern? And I'm using more and more of the tool as I get higher up. Now again, there's a lot of personal preference happening here. So with projects like this that are great for utilizing maybe some scrap leather, or as I call it, second or third use leather, you can really decide for yourself what you like. But from a marketing perspective, these may or may not be my favorite, but they might be a customer's favorite. So I never mind deviating from my own personal taste, because I might create something that is perfect for somebody else, while I may be like, man, I would never wear that, So just keep an open mind. There we are. And now we can come through with our beveler foot. And I'm not going to be tooling on the line, I'm going to come just a little bit out from it. And just do a little bit of these markings. Just following along right outside the edge. And so you can see that gives it just a little bit more depth too in what's going on there. I'm going to do that same thing to the other side. Now whenever I'm using this tool as a hammer, I'm kind of walking it along the surface of the project, because with every hammer hit, the tool can kind of jump a little bit actually. So I don't know how much the camera's picking up on that, but you can always just tap and then move, and then tap and then move, and then tap until you build up your speed and your, accuracy, and get it to where it starts walking for you. And this is probably my favorite part, to get to just, it's almost like you're carving the leaf pattern into the leather. And then from here, you can take it, and it's a natural inclination of the shape of these to kind of almost bend in half. But you can take it and do all kinds of different, like you can bend it and then twist. So that gives a really nice leaf shape. So bend and, yeah. I can never remember which way to bend it to make it, symmetrical. And on this pair, I'm not actually going to bother staining. I think I'm just going to dry brush it with some like metallic copper paint after it's dried. So I'm going to let it dry, and then I'll meet you guys right back here for our next and final step. So here I just have an old chip brush, like a little 1-inch, and my copper colored metallic Folk Art brand acrylic paint. I use acrylics on leather pieces really frequently, but only on things like that are not going to have a ton of flexibility to them. Like if this were the wrist part of like a bracer or the strap of something, I would never use acrylic on it because there is a big tendency for it to crack. But whenever I'm dry brushing, it does fantastically. So I just get a little bit of paint onto the bristles and I'm blotting it. And then I'm just catching the high points of the leather. And since these are earrings, I am going to go ahead and do both sides. And whenever they dry, they'll have a really nice kind of tan, coppery look to them. So I'm going to go ahead and do this to the other side. And I don't even bother putting it out onto like a palette or anything. I just dab it into the cap. I'm only using the one color, so there's no chance of mixing or any of that stuff. And you can see they're still not even really dry yet, but I'm just going to put a little bit of a twist into it. Nice and artsy-fartsy. And I actually love making these. You can see I save all of my little leather fragments to cut into weird leaf shapes or different things because I love using these on festival belts and belly dance belts and all sorts of different things. They add so much nice movement without adding a lot of weight. Okay, so now the assembly step. On most leather projects, I would wait until, you know, it's completely dry. But when making earrings, I actually find it helps them to dry faster if I can get them gone on in a head and like strung up. And then hang them on something, that way the air can circulate better. So here I'm using 16 gauge 1/4 inch and 18 gauge 1/8 inch aluminum rings that Randy and I coil and cut ourselves. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but all the tools and materials will be listed down in the video description below. So there you can see, you go ahead and just close the ring as best you can. And then close the ring. And now you can see with it like this, I could have attached it directly to the ear hook, but then our leaf earring will be sitting kind of sideways. I want it sitting front ways. So I'm going to be attaching another ring, the smaller one, hooking through the large, and then hooking onto the ear hook, and then going ahead and closing it. Then opening, hooking, and hooking. And then close them. Then just thread on the backs. I always pair rubber earring backs onto my earrings because for one, it helps it to stay on my displays, and for two, they're just handy, and they're so affordable that it's not really, you know, fraction of a pennies per piece, so it's not really putting me out any to give away a pair of earring backs with every pair of earrings. Hey everybody, thanks so much for hanging out with me for this tutorial. I hope that it was helpful to you. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. I do love hearing y'all's ideas and stuff, especially if you have requests for future tutorials or ideas of, I don't know, just I love hearing from you guys. So if you want to share stuff to my Facebook wall or tag me on Instagram, the links for that are down below also. I super duper love these earrings though, you guys. Like, for serious. Like, they're so lightweight and they have such a nice movement to them. And I love big earrings, but I can't really wear a whole lot of heavy stuff, at least not for very long. And so these are a perfect option for nice, lightweight, but big earrings. There are tons of different ways that you could accessorize them, like add beads or charms and things to them, or feathers, or, you know, yeah, with very little modification, these are basically feather earrings. Like, you can make leather feathers and stuff out of them. So if you enjoy my free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, as well as participate in my weekly giveaways and my craft crates and digital download content and behind the scenes not footage, but like pictures and updates and stuff, please check me out on Patreon. Links will be down below. And it really makes a big difference to us, everybody who participates with Patreon, as well as liking, sharing, subscribing, and just generally enjoying our videos. Thank you guys for spending your time with us. So until next time, happy crafting, and I'll see y'all around. Bye!